Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Megillah Daf Ches. We are right at the Mishnah on top of the Amud. We're continuing on the topic of Ein Bein, finding similarities and distinctions between two similar cases. We began a couple of days ago when we referenced the difference between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni, the first and second Adar, regarding Purim and Kriyas Megillah, and that took us onto this topic of finding differences between similar scenarios. Says the Mishnah, Ein Bein. This is the first of 5 Mishnahs on this daf discussing this topic. Ein Bein, there isn't much difference between the following two cases. Hamudur hana mechaveri, a person committed, he made a neder. I will refrain from having any benefit from you. That's called hamudar, he made a neder. Hana mechaveri, he cannot have any hana from his friend. That's one case. So there's not much difference between that and the next case. Lemudar mimenu machal, he committed to refrain from anything food related from his friend. So isn't much difference between the two cases, except for the following two things. Ella, number one, Drisas Regel, walking through his property. It's hana, and therefore that's asr for a mudar hana, but it's not food related, and therefore it's mutar to this fellow who is only meant to refrain from machal. He can walk through this fellow's property. That's number one. Second difference, v'kelim, borrowing utensils, which aren't food related, not used in the food preparation process. So if you may not have hana, you can't enjoy these kelim as well. But if it's only an isser of machal, you can borrow these kelim, which are not food related. Let's go over to Rashi on top. Masnis. Ein ben hamudur hana. Mudur hana is chomer, is certainly more strict and severe min mudar machal, because mudar hana cannot enjoy anything, whereas mudar machal is strictly food related. Two differences. Drisas regel. Shamudar hana asur likanos lebeisai. If you can't have hana, you can't walk into this fellow's home. V'hamudar machal mutar. If it's just an isra machal, you may do that. Number two, v'kelim. Shein oisen ben eichel nefesh, borrowing a kli which isn't used for food. Mutar lahashel and mudar machal, that can be lent to a fellow who is only meant to refrain from machal, but it cannot be given to a fellow who may not have hana. Now Rashi will add another aspect here. V'davke b'makom shein maskirin. Kayetzuman. This heter, to supply him with a tool, a kli, which is not food related, only applies in a makom she'ein maskirin kayetzuman, where they don't have the practice of renting out these types of kelim. Avo b'makom she'maskirin kayetzuman. But if in this locale they rent these types of kelim, and you're not charging him for the rental, then even this fellow can't borrow the kli. It's not behedya. We have a Mishnah. The asr. You can't take it because you're saving money. Dechol hana. She'im lo yehano zeh. In any case of hana, where if this fellow would not have given it to you, hayu machaser b'pruta, you would have to pay for it. You wouldn't get it free of charge. It would cost you money. That is hanas machali. It's called a food-related hana. Why? It's money, it's not food. Well, money buys food. You can take that pruta that you are saving, a penny saved is a penny earned. You could use that money to buy food. So in effect, he's giving you machal. So bottom line is, a mudar machal may walk through his property, may borrow a kli, which is not meant for eichel nefesh, nor is generally rented, in which case he's not really getting any money. Back to the Gemara. It's clear in the Mishnah that regarding a kli which is used for eichel nefesh, a pot, a pan, that's asr in either case, both for the mudar hana and also for the mudar mimenu machal, because although he's not borrowing food, it's only a pot, but it's used to make food, and that's included in the isser hana as machal. Drisas regel, walking through his property, is only usher if you may not have anah, but not for a fellow who's only going to refrain from eichel. And what's wrong with walking through his property? Halikapti inchi, who cares? Who's particular about people walking through their house? It's not something which is worth anything. Amar Rabba, Hamani or Blezi, who following Shittas or Blezi, the Amar Vitor, even something which generally a person would just be mavater, wouldn't be particular about, it's still asr b'mudar hana. A fellow who cannot have hana may not enjoy this service as well. So bottom line is, there isn't much difference between mudar hana and mudar machal, except for two things. A mudar hana may not walk through his property, drisas regel, or borrow a kli which is not eichel nefesh related. In both cases, mudar hana and machal, he can't borrow a kli which is used for eichel nefesh, nor, as Rashi pointed out, in a case where he's saving money on the rental. Continues the Mishnah. Ein bein nedarim l'davis. There isn't much difference between a neder, where a person obligates himself, he promises to bring a carbon, or an adava, where he points to an animal, this is going to be donated for the Mikdash. There isn't much difference. Ein bein nedarim l'davis, ella, they're both valid karbanes. The only difference is your personal obligation, your personal responsibility to look after it. Shenedarim chay b'achrayusan, by another, you're personally obligated to look after it. It's a personal chiv, it's gavra chiv. When a dava is in a chay b'achrayusan, but a dava, if it gets lost, he doesn't have to look after it. Let's go over to Rashi, off to the right. Neder and a dava. Mefarash b'gemara. The Gemara will explain. Neder means ha'imar harei alai oila. I will bring the oila. It's a personal obligation. Ula'achaz mani frisha. Then he set aside the carbon for that chiyuv. Chayav b'achrayusa. He has to look after it. Whereas nadava means ha'imar harezu. This is going to be the carbon. V'lei kibla alav. He didn't accept responsibility to look after that carbon. Continues the Gemara. The only difference is achrayus. Apparently, ha le'inin bal ta'achar. Zev is a shavan. Regarding the iso bal ta'achar, which tells us that a person who's chayiv a carbon can't delay bringing the carbon past a certain point, as we learned in Masechus Rosh Hashanah. That applies to both cases, neder or nadava. Both have to be brought in a timely fashion. Tanan Hasam, we learned in the Mishnah over in Rosh Hashanah. Eizehu neder. What is a neder? Ha'imar harei alai oila. I will bring an oila. Eizehi nadava. What's a nadava? Ha'imar harei zu oila. Look, this animal is now designated for an oila. Now they're both karbanis. So what's the difference? Uma bein nedarim and nadavis. What's the difference between one and the other? The answer is nedarim. By a neder, where it's a personal obligation. Mesu inignu. If the animal died, got stolen or lost, chayav b'achrayusan. He has to look after it. He has to replace that animal. He has to be mekayim his personal chiyuv to bring that carbon. Whereas by nedavais we say it's a chafza. It's the item. It's the object that's committed. And therefore, Mesu, if it got lost or stolen, he's not responsible. He doesn't have to look after it. He doesn't have to replace it. How do we know this to be true? The Tanu Rabbanon, we have a brayse based on the pasuk V'nir tzoloi lechaper olav. Says Reb Shimon. You know what this means? Reb Shimon oimer esha olav chayav b'achrayusay. The ner tzoloi happens by lechaper. Only when the carbon is actually brought, that's when Hashem accepts it. It becomes rotzah to him. He's fulfilled his obligation. Lechaper brings the nirtza. But that's only when it's olav. When he committed personally. He did a neder. Then we say, the ritzui, the acceptance, the finding favor in Hashem's eyes, is dependent upon the actualization, the akrav of the carbon. Only when it's a personal obligation. Then he's chayav b'achrayis v'eshein olav. But otherwise, if it's not a personal obligation, if it's not resting on him, ein chayav b'achrayis, sure, he has to bring it, but if it gets lost or stolen or dies, he doesn't have to replace it. And that's what we learn from this pasuk. My mashma. How do you see it in the pasuk? It says, V'nir tzoloi, lechaper, olav. Olav means it's on him. How do you see from the word olav? that it's an obligation. That only in the case of a neder does the ritzui happen through kapara. And therefore he has to look after it. My mashma, how do you see it in the pasuk? Amar b'yisabar avdimi. Given the Omar alive, when a person says, Haray alai oila, commanded ton, akat fe damit, as though it's been loaded akat fe on his shoulders. That's what the pasuk means. Olav, when it's olav, when it's a personal obligation, a personal commitment, it's like resting on him. He has to bring it about. He has to carry it out, so to speak. So in the case of olav, then the ritzui is dependent upon kapara. But if it's not olav, it's a donation. Look, this carbon is committed as a carbon. Fine. It's a carbon, but if something happens to it, he still has ritzui. It's not a chiv that he has to look after, that he's responsible for, that he has to replace for a lost and stolen situation. So bottom line is, neder and adava, both forms of karbonis and commitment. Bal ta'achar applies to both. Only difference is achrayis. Achrayis applies to neder and not to nadav. Continues the Mishnah. Ein bein zav haroya shtei riyos. L'roya shalish elokar. The only difference between a zav who experienced an emission of ziva twice, which makes him tummy, and the next fellow who saw 3 times, that makes him tummy. They're both really tummy and have the same exact tumah. Only difference is carbon. A fellow who had 2 riyos doesn't bring a carbon during the tahara process. The zav who had 3 riyos, he will bring a carbon. Says Rashi off to the right, Masnis and Shtei riyos. B'yem echad, he had both sightings on the same day. Oy b'shnei yom ritzufim, or 2 days in a row. V'chein sholosh b'yem echad. Oy b'shlosh yom ritzufim. Oy shtayim b'yem echad. V'achas l'machar. So he had 2 or 3 riyos within a period of 2 days, or by 3 riyos, it can be up to 3 days. They're both tummy. But carbon only applies to the gimel riyos. Says the Gemara. Holin, apparently when it comes to other halachas, tumah, counting 7 clean days as part of the tahara process, that applies equally to both types of zav. Holin in mishka v'moshav, regarding sitting and lying on something which makes that item tamei mishka v'moshav, makes it an avatuma. Even if he doesn't actually come into contact, he's lying on a mattress, separated from the mattress with a sheet or blankets, he's not actually touching the mattress, that's called mishkav, or a seat. There as well, that item which he interacted with assumes a very severe level of tumah, becomes an avatuma. A person, if that person comes into contact with that mattress. So regarding the level of tumah, usfira shiva, and likewise regarding the obligation to count 7 clean days as part of the tahara process, zev is a shavin. That applies to both cases of ziva, whether he saw 2 riyos or 3. Let's go down to Rashi, around 2-3 lines down. Gemara, Mishkav Moshe. What does that mean? Shachav ayashav. He lied down or he sat. Al gabe asar begadim, and 10 begadim piled up, one on top of each other. Ze al gav ze. Kulan avesatuma. Every one of those things sitting beneath him is an avatuma. Afilu nagabem, even though there wasn't direct contact. So this concept of Mishkav Moshe is unique to a zav, to a zava, and this applies regardless of whether it was 2 riyos or 3. Says Rashi, this is different than just naga, if he just touches something. Vilu naga b'davar she'eni mishkav moshe. If he just came into contact with something that does not constitute a seat or a like a bed, eina l'rishon l'tumah, that item becomes tummy, but it's a lighter form of tumah, rishon l'tumah. Ve'enim tam odem kelim. That item cannot transfer tumah to a person or to a kli. Eloichel mashkin, only to food and drink. So this concept of mishkav moshe, this severe type of tumah, applies to a zav, as well as Sfiras Shiva, which is Misha Yifsek. Once the Ziva stops, Tzorach Limnois Zainakim, he has to find 7 clean days in a row, Kodesh Yitbal, which allows him to be Teufel. If you should see Ziva merely one time throughout that 7-day period, Sasar Kalamanuyin, and now cancels those days, he has to start all over. So the Zav ben shtei riyos or ben sholosh riyos, It's all the same regarding Tumah and the need to count Shiva Nakim. The only difference is regarding carbon, which applies to the fellow who had 3. Doesn't apply to the fellow who had 2. Says the Gemara Menan immediately, how do we know that they're on the same boat regarding Tumah, and there is a distinction regarding carbon? We have 2 psukim describing the ziva process. Monakas of Shtayim v'karitame. In one pasuk we have the Torah mentioning a twice zav, a zav who sees twice, and the Torah calls him tame. We have another pasuk, shalish v'karitame. The Torah mentions 3 sightings and calls him a tame. So which one is it? 2 or 3? Haketat, apparently it means as follows: Shtayim l'tumah v'shalish l'karban. Whether we had 2 or 3, he's tame. The only distinction is regarding carbon, which applies to 3 and not to 2. Ve'ema, perhaps we'll say the other way around. Shtayim l'tumah v'le l'karban. When he has 2, he's tame. He's matame mishkav v'moshev without a carbon. Shalish l'karban v'le l'tumah. When he sees 3, sure, he has a carbon, but he's absolved from this severe form of tumah. So how do you know 2 and 3 have the same dinim of tumah? The only difference is carbon. Perhaps we can speculate and say, sure, there's a difference, but go further. Say a zav who has 2 riyos has tumas ziva but no carbon. When it's 3, he has carbon without tumah. That can't be. Amras, the response is actually rosh shalish rosh time. By the time he gets to 3, he already passed 2. So you can't say he loses the tumah that he already got when he saw 2. That's not probable. Therefore, says the word, you can't say that when he has 3, he loses tumah. Apparently, tumah applies equally to 2 and 3. And the distinction is regarding carbon. Says the Gemara, well, maybe let's equate them regarding carbon and make that distinction regarding tumah. Ve'emar, maybe we'll say shtayim l'carbon. 2 brings a carbon. V'le l'tumah, it doesn't have this severe form of tumah like a zav has. Rashi says it's like just a balkari, is a lighter form of tumah. So even when he has 2 re'iyos, he has to have carbon, but no tumah. Shalish ashla tumah. Once he gets to 3, now he gets the most severe form of tumah. Meaning, instead of saying that 2 and 3 on the same boat regarding tumah, the difference is regarding carbon, maybe no. They're on the same boat regarding carbon, and the chiluk is regarding tumah. 2 doesn't have tumah, and 3 does. You can't say that. You can't suggest that both types of zavim have a carbon. The Sanya, we have a brayso regarding the pasuk of carbon. The carbon will bring the carbon. We mechaper on the zav. Mizoive means we're selective. Carbon only applies in some cases, which means miktsas zav and mevin carbon. Only some cases of zav bring a carbon. Miktsas zav and ein mevin carbon, and some don't. So it's clear that we distinguish between some and others regarding carbon. Okay, so apparently it works as follows. Rosh shalish. If he had 3 re'iyos of zav, maybe he brings a carbon. Shtayim, maybe. He's only holding at 2. He doesn't bring a carbon. It's clear that we distinguish between 2 and 3 regarding carbon. So apparently, regarding other things, regarding tumah, they're one and the same. Right? Because we had a pasuk before that said that both cases, 2 and 3, are considered tamei. So apparently they're on the same footing regarding tumah. It's only regarding carbon that we machalak, based on this pasuk, that carbon only applies mizav in some cases. Or maybe we'll suggest otherwise. Or ella ra beis, maybe ra shalasheni, maybe the fellow who had 2 brings a carbon, and not the fellow who had 3. If you're looking to make a chiluk, maybe do it this way. Amris, the response is you can't say that. Achale Rosh Shalish, before he got to 3, Rosh time, he experienced 2. So if a fellow who has 2 brings a carbon, certainly when he gets 3 riyos, he has to bring a carbon. He doesn't lose his chi of carbon. So the bottom line is, we equate them regarding Tumah, and we distinguish regarding Korbanos. Now we had 2 separate brises here. We had Rabbi Simoi, who was based on the fact that we have 2 psukim, one pasuk describing 2 riyos, one pasuk describing 3 riyos. Apparently there's some sort of chiluk between them. We had brisa number 2 by Korbanos. Meizoive. It only applies in some cases. We learn from there. It only applies to a Baal Shalish and not a Baal Shtayim. Why do we need both sets of psukim, which essentially are teaching us the same thing? Both are needed. We need Rabbi Simoi's set of psukim. We need the pasuk of Mizoiva that differentiates between different ziva situations. Both are needed. Both complement each other. The imid Rabbi Simoi, if only from Rabbi Simoi's psukim, Havamina would say Kikushim. We would still have that kasha. Which kasha? Perhaps we have to equate all ziva experiences regarding korbanos. Whether it's 2 or 3, he brings a carbon. The difference is regarding tumah. That a fellow who has 2 doesn't have the severe form of tumah like the fellow who has 3. So sure, we're drawing a line between 2 and 3, but perhaps the line is to be drawn regarding tumah. But when it comes to carbon, they all bring a carbon. Kamashman mizoiva. Oh, now we have that other pasuk by korbanos. It only applies mizoiva in some cases. It's clear that we have to draw that line between 2 or 3 regarding carbon. If only from that pasuk, sure, I would know that some cases of ziva bring a carbon, some don't. But what is considered some and some? How many experiences? 2, 3, 4, 5? We have no idea. Regarding numbers, that's why we need Rabbi Simoi's psukim. One pasuk speaks about 2, one about 3. Here you go. The 2 levels of ziva. The fellow who saw 2, no carbon. The fellow who saw 3, he has carbon. So bottom line is, we have 2 types of ziva. Shtei riyos, shalosh riyos. Regarding tumah, they're both the same. They both are metame mishka v'moshev. Regarding sfiras shiva nakim, they're both the same. Regarding carbon, we make that distinction. Once it turns out that the word mizoiva is coming to tell you a drasha, carbon only applies to some cases, not others. What about the next pasuk, which also features that same word, mizoiva? V'chigitar hazav mizoiva. Pasuk says when the zav is finally his ziva terminates, he goes and does sfiras shiva nakiyim, counts 7 days, is toivel, and becomes tar. Mizoive. What's the drasha here? Chitar azav mizoive. What's it coming to tell you? My darshas pay. And says the Gemara, we have a reason for that drasha. We have a purpose. It's needed for the following brisa. Listen you. The chitar hazav. We learn many things from this pasuk, from the way the Torah worded this pasuk. The chitar hazav. L'shivsik. Mizoive. Why does the pasuk have to say chitar hazav? We're speaking about hazav to tell you l'chashayivsik mizoive. As soon as he stops experiencing ziva, he can embark on counting 7 days. He doesn't have to wait for tvila. Right away, start counting 7 days. Be tevel later. The word mizoiva is coming to tell you, let's say this fellow, on top of being a zav, is also mitzvah. He can start counting shiva nakim even while he's still in a mitzvah state. It doesn't interfere with shiva nakim for zav. Mizoiva. As long as he stops his ziva, start counting. He doesn't have to get rid of the ziva and the nega. Mizoiv is safar. In fact, the Torah puts the word mizoiv next to the safar. That also teaches us something. Limed, it teaches us al zav al shterias. Even a zav who only had 2 experiences still needs shiva nakim. Shatan svira shiva has to count 7 days. And this is the makar for the halacha we mentioned earlier that either zav needs to have svira shiva. Why do we need a pasuk for this? Mi zayvay, coming to tell you that even a mixas ziva, even a partial zav, a low-level zav, a 2 experience zav does shiva nakim. Why do we need a pasuk? Valei dinu. You can just derive it from a svara. Look, we've established that he has tumah. Mishkav Moshev. Why wouldn't he have the other halachas of a zav, i.e., count 7 days? Why do we need a pasuk? Answer is Shemer Hashem Keneged Yom Techiach. We have a precedent. We have another example of an isha. She's passed her 7 days of nida. Now she entered the Yimei Ziva, 11 days where she could potentially become a zava. She sees 1 day, only 1 day. She has to keep the next day tahar, Keneged Yom, which corresponds to the day of Tumah. That's the halacha. Shemer Hashem Keneged Yom Techiach. That will provide a precedent to show that your equation isn't necessarily grounded. Look, she's a Metame Mishkav Moshe. Beinatuna Svira Shiva. She doesn't need Shiva Nakim. Let's go to Rashi on top. Shemer Hashem Keneged Yom Haroya Yom Echad Ishnayim V'Soich Echad Arser Yom Shebei Nida L'Nida. Between this Nida and the next month's Nida, there are 11 days, which are called Yimei Ziva. And if she has Riyaz Dam during those days, right, she sees 1 day, Mani Yom Echad. As long as the next day is clean, that's okay. V'tevelas b'biyayim, she'll be tevel that day. That provides a precedent to prove that you can have one without the other. We find a brisa where this isha is Matam Mishkav Moshe, but she doesn't need Shiva Nakim unless she's a full-fledged Zava. She has 3 riyas. 2 or 3 riyas. Actually, I think by the isha it's 3 riyas. In any case, here we go. A Shemer Yom Keneged Yom. She has tumah without any chiv of Svira Shiva. Says the one on the second line, Vaf Ata. And you as well. Al Titma, don't wonder. Al Zeh on this fellow who had 2 riyas, this man who had 2 riyas of Ziva. Shava Bishan Metam Mishkav Moshev, although certainly, we know that Metam Mishkav Moshev, well, Yatan Svira Shiva, doesn't mean he'll have to count 7 clean days. So you can't derive it from Svara. That's why you need that pasuk. Mizayva v'safar, which teaches you Miktsas zayva v'safar. Even though it's only a partial ziva experience, it's only twice, not 3 times. V'safar. Limid al zav bal shtei re'yos sheton sviras shiva. Here we go. Even a zav who experienced ziva only twice will have to apply sviras shiva in the tahara process. Okay, here we go. This is the conclusion to the sugya. We have 2 types of zav: a partial zav, 2 riyas; a full zav, 3 riyas. And which way are they equal? Which way are they different? When it comes to tumah, equal and the same. When it comes to sfiras shiva, equal and the same. The only chiluk is regarding carbon. Now it's interesting. We have the word mizayve twice. In one case, we seem to use it as a miyut. Pasuk of carbon. We learn only some cases of ziva bring a carbon, meaning a full-fledged zav, 3 riyas, brings a carbon, but a partial zav, a 2 times zav, no carbon. But now we have a pasuk by Sfiras Shiva, same word mizoivai. Here it's inclusive. Even a miktzah zav, even a partial zav, even a 2 times zav will have Sfiras Shiva. Here the word mizayvai is excluding the fellow who saw 2, no carbon. And here mizayvai is including even the fellow who saw 2, regarding Shiva Nakim. What's going on? Maishna, what's the difference between one and the other? Maishna hai mizayvai de marbibe. When it comes to the most recent pasuk, Svira Shiva, we say mizayvai is marbibe, zav al shtei reis, including even the partial zav. He needs to do Svira Shiva. Why is it that the former Mizayve by carbon to be might be Zav al shtei reis? Over there we say no. It only applies to some cases. We're selective. Only the full-fledged zav brings a carbon, not the partial zav. Is mizayvai inclusive or exclusive? Amalei, Abai responds, I would assume mizayvai is coming to exclude, coming to be memait. Only some cases have the carbon, not others. But when it comes to the second topic of Sfira Shiva, I will prove to you. If you take a close look at the pasuk, it's clear that the pasuk there is trying to include him. Because if you will propose, if you will suggest that mi zoivai, in this context of Sfira Shiva, is coming to be memait, coming to exclude him, why do you need a pasuk? Why would I even think to include him? The pasuk should just remain silent and not say anything. By default, he would not need Sfira Shiva. Why would I think he needs Sfira Shiva? Sfira Shiva applies to a regular Zav. A Zav has 3 riyos. Not a Zav has 2. Why would I include the Zav has 2? So the fact that the pasuk adds the word mizave, apparently we're trying to include him as well. Perhaps you'll say, no, I would assume on my own that he's included. And that's why the pasuk has to exclude him. I would say, even the Baal Shtayim needs Sfira Shiva. Medina, it's a svara. Look, he has Tumah, which we prove in the Psukim, and why wouldn't he have all the halachas of a Zav? Sfira Shiva as well. You couldn't say that. We've already disproved that notion. We had a precedent. Shemeres Yom. She has Tumah, Mishkav of Moshe without Sfira Shiva. So what would you think? The Zav, Balshterias, has Sfira Shiva. By default, I would assume he does not. And apparently the pasuk is telling you he does. That's why the pasuk is coming, to tell you he does. Perhaps you'll argue that the pasuk is needed for something else. That this fellow who's a Zav and a Metzora doesn't have to free himself of the Tzaras before he can embark on the entire process of Ziva, like we learned earlier. Perhaps that's all the pasuk is coming to tell you, not coming to include the Zav Balshterias for Sfira Shiva. Maybe. You have a point. But im ken lichtav kra, v'chiyiter hazav. If only for that, the pasuk would be more concise in its expression. V'chiyiter hazav, that's it. Which indicates that as long as he's finished his ziva, he can embark on the tahara process. He can disregard his tzaras. That's not part of the equation. It doesn't interfere. V'lishtek mizoivei. V'lishtek, and stop right there. Mizoivei lamidi. Why does the Torah add the word mizoivei? There's another lesson here. Limit is coming to tell you that even a partial ziva, even a zav bal shtei re'iyos, will be incorporated in the tahara process like anybody else. Limed al zav bal shtei re'iyos sheton sfira shiva. There's no other reason for the Torah to add the word mizoivai. I would never have thought that he needs sfira shiva. So apparently I'm not coming to be a ma'itim. Meat is only to counter a previous notion. Include him? No. Exclude him. There's no reason to include him. And it's an extra word. So that's why we apply it l'chumra, to be marba. Even a zav ashteriyos, he needs sfira shiva nakim as part of his tahara process. So conclusion, we have 2 types of zav. Zav bal shteriyos, zav bal gimoriyos. Only the zav bal gimel gets a carbon. Regarding mishkav v'moshev and sfira shiva, they're all one and the same. Continues the Mishnah. We have another distinction between 2 very similar cases, 2 types of mitzora. Ein bein mitzora muskar. Mitzora muskar is a quarantine mitzora who's sent out of town on standby. He comes back after a week. The kohen goes to him after a week, after 2 weeks to check whether the nega remained status quo or it grew and it spread. So he's not really yet committed to tumah. He's on standby. Ein bein mitzora muskar. There isn't much difference between a quarantine mitzora, the mitzora muchat. between him and a Mitzvah Muchlat who has been issued that verdict, an absolute Mitzvah, he's really Tameh. Not much difference. They're both Tameh. They both reside out of the city. Ella Priya Prima. Only difference is that a Mitzvah Muchlat who's been committed to Tumah, he has to let his hair grow, Priya, with Prima, tear his clothing. Things which don't apply to the Mitzvah Muskar. One more thing. Ein bein tar mitoich hesker. There's not much difference between the Tahara process when he's emerging from the Hezger, the quarantine situation, with tar mitoich hechlet, as opposed to the Tahara process which the Muchlat needs to undergo. Not much difference. El taglachas v'tziparim, haircut and birds, which apply to the Muchlat and not the Muskar. So these are the only distinctions. Says the Gemara, Holin Shiluach, V'tumah. Apparently when it comes to other things, sending them out of town. V'tumah, the fact that they carry very, very severe tumah on themselves. In fact, even if they walk into a house, the whole house becomes, all the content becomes tummy. Zev Shavan, both. The Muskar and the Muchlat have the same Allah. How do we know this to be true? How do we know that the Muskar is free from Priya and Prima? Perhaps Priya Prima apply to both types of Mitzvah equally. Just as Tumah v'Shiluach is universal. The Tanit of Shmuel bar Yitzchak. He had a bris and he presented it Kamei Rav Huna Rav Huna. Pasuk says, "V'tiarei hakoy mispachasi, v'chibes begada v'toyer." So the Mitzvah Muskar, he washes his clothing and he becomes tar. Now, the word v'toyer doesn't seem to be working on future. Otherwise it would say v'yitar, he'll become tar through this process. V'toyer, says the Gemara, evidently is referring to something of the past, to denote that he had a less severe tumah situation, even in the past, while he was still muskar, before he went through the tar process. And we learn, tar be priya uprima dimiikara, that initially, while he was still quarantined, his tumah isn't so severe like the Mitzvah Muchlat. He doesn't have to go through the Priya or Prima process. If that's the case, Gabi Zav. You have a similar Lashon by Zav. The Chsiv v'chibes begada v'toher. Hasam over there, the word v'tor is referring to the past. My v'tor mikarika. How could it apply to the past? He's a Zav. He wasn't so tameh while he was a Zav. That's not so. Oh, Ella, apparently you have to apply it a bit differently than you suggested. The word v'tor is telling you some sort of a leniency regarding his tumah status right now. Let's say he was a zav, became tar, he was toivel. Then later on in the day, he re-experienced ziva. Now it turns out that he was tummy all along, retroactively. But we have a kula. Elotor hashta. At this point, after he's toivel. Even if he'll end up seeing tumah later, which makes him tumah retroactively, but right now he's tar milatame klicheres beheset. This is unique to a zav. If he pushes around the kli, even an earthenware kli, which isn't metame from the outside, but if he pushes it around, it's called hesed. He moves it around, that's metame the kli. Even without directly touching it, he's metame the kli. So once this zav achieved tahara, now he can no longer be matame behesed. Afagav da'adar chazi, even though later on in the day he re-experienced ziva, which really makes him tame retroactively. It turns out that he was never really tarter. He's not going to be matame that kli that he moved around. It's a special kula. While he was tar, he can't be matame behesed. So perhaps that's what the pasuk means. But tar means that right now, once he's toivel, he assumes a tahara status to a certain extent, that even after that tahara status is reversed, but to a certain extent, his tahara sticks regarding klicheres behesed. Hachanami, perhaps here as well, when it comes to the mitzvah muskar, where the Torah also employs the lashon v'tor, it's not alluding to the past. That when he was a muskar, he's free of those other obligations, priya. No, it's just another aspect of his tahara going forward. Tar hashtam bial mafreya. Once he's tar from muskar, he lost his nega, he becomes tar, and he walks into a home. and later on it turns out that his nega returns. We don't say he's metama b'bi'el mafreya. Anything that home becomes tama retroactively. No. Once he's tar, he assumes tahara status going forward, even though the tahara becomes undone later. That's all. We're speaking about this particular case, this specific aspect of tahara going forward. You have no raya to anything during the time of Hesker. The Torah is not referring to past, it's referring to going forward. So it takes back to our kasha. How do we know that a mitzvah muskar, a quarantined, locked up mitzvah, doesn't need to let his hair grow, but tear his clothing? Why is it different than a mitzvah muchlat? Who needs to go through that process? Elam Rav, I'll tell you. I'll give you a machav from the following pasuk. When the pasuk describes what the tzarua, what the fellow that has a nega has to undergo, letting his hair grow long, tearing his clothing, the pasuk says like this: "Vatzarua asher boy hanega," the fellow who has tsaras, who the nega is within him. Now, obviously, if you don't have a nega, you're not a mitzvah. We learn like this: Misha tsarat etluy begufay. Only a fellow whose mitzvah status depends on the presence of his nega in his body. That's a mitzvah muchlat. Only this fellow has to have priya or prima. Yotzes, as opposed to the muskar, who follows other guidelines. It's more of a time-related situation. He has to wait a week, wait 2 weeks, and then he's free to go. Yotzes, as opposed to the muskar, shein tzarat etluy begufo. His tzarat status is not really dependent on the presence of his nega in his body. El biyam. It's more of a time-related issue, and therefore he doesn't have the same chumrah. He doesn't have to go through priya uprima. If that's the case, what about the next pasuk? Describing shiluach, sending the mitzvah out of town. Kol yimei asher hanega boy yitma. As long as the nega is there, he's tummy, and he's sent out of town. We're going to say the same thing here. Misha tzarat etluy begufay. Only the fellow whose tzaras status is dependent upon the presence of the nega in his body, hudaton shluch, he needs to be sent out of town, i.e., a mitzvah muchlat. As opposed to the mitzvah muskar, whose tzaras status is not dependent upon the presence of his nega in his body, doesn't need to be sent out. That's not correct. Will you suggest that that's true? Well, it's not true. The Mishnah clearly says, ain't be mitzvah muskar or mitzvah muchlat. The only difference between two types of mitzvah is ela priya prima, hair and clothing. Apparently, when it comes to sending him out of town, you got that ability to matame the content of a home upon entering that home. Zev is shown. Both mitzvahim have the same ability, the same tumah, the same shiluach. Amalei, Rava responds. The pasuk could have said, "You may hanega ba yitma." You sent him out of town. You may call. You may. Why does the pasuk add the word call? The rabbis mitzvah muskal shiluach to tell you that even a mitzvah muskar is included in this requirement, in this shiluach process. He's sent out of town. So bottom line is, both mitzvah muskar and muchlat are sent out of town. A matame, the severe form of tumah called tumas bia when they enter a home. Everything in the home is tummy. The only distinguishing factor is priya or prima, letting hair grow long, tearing up the clothing. That applies to a muchlat and not a muskar. Okay, the Bach takes out the next seven words. Let's go over to ein bein. Right, the Mishnah says ein bein Torah mitzvah chesker. The next chiluk between the two mitzvahs is regarding the tahara process. There's not much difference between the tahara process between chesker, the term to hechlet, to the tahara process applied to the mitzvah muchlat, ela teglachas v'tziparim, the requirement to shave off all hair and bring birds. Rashi actually points out that, of course, the mitzvah muskar is pata from karbonis as well, and they look shemen. But the Gemara here is focusing on what takes place on the 7th day when he becomes tar. We're not discussing the process taking place on the next day, on the 8th day. So on the 7th day, what sets them apart is teglachas v'tzipar. How do we know? Amar Abaye Amakra. V'yatsa hakoyin l'chutz l'machna. The kohen goes out, checks out the metzora, and then they embark on the tahara process, which involve teglachas and tzipar. Pasuk says, "V'hinei, look, behold, nirpa nega hatzaras." Look, the nega hatzaras became healed. We learn, misha tzarat etlui b'refuyos. This only applies to a fellow whose tzaras, or I should say, the removal of his tzaras, is dependent upon refuah, healing. It's the only way for him to become free of his tzaras. He needs to get healed. He has to heal his nefesh, and then his go follows. Yatz, as opposed to the Mitzvah Muskar, doesn't have to wait for healing. Even if the nega just stays status quo, he'll become Torah as well, as long as it doesn't spread. Yatz, as opposed to the Mitzvah Muskar, Shein Tzarat HaKli B'Refuah, his Tzaras status is not dependent upon Refuah, Elabiyam, rather, it's a day, it's a time-related malady, and therefore, the process of Tahara entailing Tagachas and Tzaparim don't apply to him. Okay, so in summary, we have two types of Mitzvah, Muskar and Mukhlat. The only differences between the two are that Mitzvah Mukhlat has Priya or Prima, letting his hair grow long, taking apart his clothing, as well as the Tahara process, which involves Tiklachas and Tziparim. However, when it comes to sending them out of town, or the severity of the tumah they're both experiencing, that applies to both equally. Okay, it says the last and final Mishnah on today's daf, number 5, Ein bein Sfarim l'tfilim mezuzos. There isn't much difference between Sfarim, Rashi says Sfarim is Tanakh, Torah and Nevi'im Ksuvim, which they used to write in scroll form. There's not much halachic difference between that and Tefillin and mezuzos. Ella, only as follows: Shasfarim nichtavim b'chaloshim. Tanakh can be written using any language, English, French. Tefillin and mezuzos einon nichtavos ella ashuros. As opposed to Tefillin and mezuzos, we learn from a pasuk v'hayu. The only way that they're written is using ashuros, lashon kodesh, special alphabet called ashuros. Rabban Shimon Gamliel Omer af besfarim leyitiru sheyikasvu or sheyichtavu el yivanis. He disagrees. He says, even when it comes to Tanakh, we only allow Greek and no other language. The Gemara will explain the reason for this. So the chiluk is regarding language. Says the Gemara, Halotay from Begidin. Apparently, when it comes to other halachas, such as the requirement to tie them using gidin sinews. So when you tie together, when you sew together the sections of the Torah, Nevi'im Ksuvim, or in a tefillin, or mezuzah, Torah perhaps, to sew them together, you have to use gidin. And their ability to metame one's hands, we discussed this yesterday. They used to place their truma near the scrolls. The mice used to come damage the scrolls while consuming the food. Chacham said, scrolls are metame one's hands, make them a shen tumah, which in turn is metame the truma upon contact. A special takana discussed in Mesechus Shabbos, which applies to kisvei kodesh, to scrolls that have kedusha. So apparently, when it comes to these halachas, the Torah from Begidin, and the Tamasei Daim is ever Shavin. All those mentioned in the Mishnah, Tanakh, Tefillin, mezuzos, are equal and the same. Okay, so we had a total of 5 Mishnahs in today's daf, discussing distinctions and similarities. Okay, let's start up on top. We have 2 cases of mudar hana, promise not to enjoy anything from his chaver. We have a fellow who's mudar machal and won't take anything food related. Only the mudar hana must refrain from drisas haregel, walking through this guy's property, or borrowing kalim which aren't food related. In either case, a kli which is food related, or as Rashi pointed out, a kli which is maskirin, which they rent out, in which case he's saving you money, that would be usher in either case, because a penny saved is a penny earned, which can be used for food. We have nadarim, where a person obligates. It's a personal obligation to bring a carbon. We have nadavis, where he sets aside a specific animal to be used as a carbon. Only the neder is chay b'achrayis. We have the zav who had 2 re'iyos, a zav who had 3 experiences. Only the one who had 3 brings a carbon. In either case, they are metame mishkav ha'moshev and need sviras shivanaki. A mitzvah muskar who is locked up until further notice, and the mitzvah muchat who has been committed to tumah, already received his verdict, his psak of tumah, are pretty much the same, except that a Mitzvah Muchlat has Priyo Prima, Tiglachas V'Tziparim upon Tahara. In either case, they're sent out of town, and they have Dine Tumas Mitzvah. We learned that Tanakh can be written in any language, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, only Yavanis, whereas Tefillah Mezuzahs must be written in Lashon HaKodesh exclusively. When it comes to other halachas, Tefillah Begidin and Tumas Yadayim, they're all equal and the same. All the best to you and much Hatzlacha.